Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Today's webinar is 9 insanely powerful strategies to turn content into customers. Perfect. So my name is Erin. I'm just here to get things kicked off. Then I'll turn things over to our actual kind of content wizards here, Holly, who works at Search Metrics, who we've partnered with for this webinar. We're really excited to work with Search Metrics. We think they have a ton to offer people, and they've been an awesome partner to us thus far. And then also Brett McHale, who is our in-house content marketing specialist. He runs all of our Facebook ads. He contributes to the blog a ton, and now he's speaking to you guys on webinars. So he has a ton of knowledge to share with us today, and I'm just so excited to be on board with them. All right, so first things first, I wanted to launch with a quick poll question, which will help us understand exactly what your pain points are. So first things first, what are your biggest content pain points? Go ahead and feel free to answer that in the poll in the GoToMeeting. And we'll try and use this to guide some of the things that we talk about today. How are we doing? All right, so we're going to go ahead and close the poll. And let's see what the results were. So 31% said they struggle with creation, 34% struggle with promotion, awesome, 45% lead gen, and 45% conversion. And I think we're going to touch on all of those topics today, which is awesome. All right. So before we get started talking about content, I did just want to quickly walk through how this connects with WordStream. I know most of you guys think of us as very heavily focused in search marketing, and so you might be wondering what we're doing, kind of breaking from the norm and talking about content today. Well, the reason that we're talking about this is because it is so important as a search marketer to ensure that you're constantly filling your funnel. And one of the best ways to fill your funnel, get people interested in your products, introduce them to your brand, and give them something to search for, is to show them content to engage them originally. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is how to create that content and how to promote that content to your users, who will hopefully come back and search for you later, and then you can kind of scoop them up with your search engine marketing. Also wanted to quickly touch on quality score. So as a PPCer, if you guys do PPC out there, you know quality score is so important to being successful with paid search. And one enormous component of quality score, which we're actually seeing has more and more of an impact, is landing page performance. So it's critical whether you're pushing people to your information solely to interest them in your product and have them read your blog, or if you're pushing them to a page with content on it that you want them to directly convert from. It's critical that you're thinking about how you're constructing these landing pages, creating things that are super engaging, which will ultimately help your quality scores. And as you can see here, having a high quality score makes all the difference in your success in paid search. So as you can see, the higher your quality score is, the more of a discount you get from Google. They give it to you as an incentive to encourage you to create better, more engaging content. If you're struggling with lower quality scores, it works against you. And you start to actually have what we consider a quality score tax added on to your cost per click. So if you guys are in search marketing and working on paid search campaigns, don't forget the importance of having good, strong content. So without further ado, I want to introduce Holly from Search Metrics. She is amazing. She's been in this space for like over 10 years, and we're just so excited to have her on this webinar teaching you guys more about content. So I'll turn things over to Holly.
That's great. Thanks for the introduction, Erin. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Thank you to WordStream for inviting me to contribute. I'm really excited to give you guys tips for turning your content into customers from an SEO perspective. There's a great quote by Oscar Wilde, and he says, "Success is a science. If you have the right conditions, you get the result." So with that in mind, there's a landscape to SEO that we have to consider. There are technical factors, content, and link signal strength, and social promotion. But content is an area where we can be successful and get the conditions we need to set up to get the right results. And I'm going to give you some things to test along the way. You should always test when it comes to SEO, because you're essentially serving two masters. First is the user, and the second is the search engine. Write for the user, optimize for the search engine. Content alone is not enough to be successful in SEO, but by setting up the right conditions, we can influence the result and be successful at growing organic traffic or increasing conversions. So, you guys ready for your tips? Let's dive in. The first is get the basics right. All right. Nope, that's not our first slide. We're giving it away. Let me see if I can click in. Technical difficulties here, guys. Hold on one moment. No? Can we bounce back? Let's see. Erin, are we having a little bit of trouble with the PowerPoint here?
So we actually have this as your next slide. It seems to be working okay. I'm wondering if the slides are out of order?
That's very possible too. This is going to be a fun presentation, because now we're going to see what comes up next.
Yeah,
no worries. Well, I can talk to
for
this
everybody out there. Perfect. Yeah.
We'll see what comes up. That's okay. All right. So the need for speed. Sorry if this is out of context, but we will re-upload another, finalized version of the deck. So hopefully it makes more sense. But the first concept here is get the basics right, and we talk about page speed and making sure your content is mobile friendly. Now, this is an excerpt from the Search Metrics Ranking Factor Study, which highlights the data around how fast the top 10 desktop and mobile sites load. So we found that the average load time for mobile devices was just over 1 second, as you can see here, 1.10, and a bit more for desktop, 1.16. So if you want a shot at ranking on page 1, that's how fast you need to be. Making sure your page content like videos and images and your code is well optimized is really the key here. Google likes that because it provides a better and faster user experience. All right, let's see what the next slide is, shall we? Nope, not clicking through again. There we go. All right. Are you mobile friendly? So since October of last year, more than half of Google's searches happen on mobile. Let that sink in. More than half. I mean, the mobile device is a personal pocket computer. People have it on them all the time. So it's so important that your site is fast and your content can be consumed on a smaller screen. There are two great resources that we highlighted here for you to check to see if your domain is mobile friendly and to quickly identify any hangups in your load times. The first is mobile friendly, Google's mobile friendly tool. You enter your domain and Google will analyze it and provide guidelines. If the site is not mobile friendly, it will basically indicate barriers like the text is too small to read or the content is wider than the screen. But this is a great resource because it helps you understand how Google sees your mobile site and offers ways to improve it. The second tool down here is free. It's pretty sophisticated. It's a website called webpagetest.org. This is a great tool for visualizing how long it takes the elements on your page to render and actually load so that you can accurately pinpoint what needs refining. I especially like the visualization to show to clients. That can be really powerful for literally seeing how long it takes before there's something visually that's available above the fold. So it's a bit more of an advanced tool, but again, very accurate for identifying issues. So there's links to both of these in our presentation. Love this statistic by Kissmetrics. They had a couple actually, but we chose this one because it resonates the best. They discovered a few insights on page load times and how that affects user behavior. What the statistic is 40% abandon a website that takes more than 3 seconds to load. So barring the fact that someone could be in a location that doesn't have a good internet connection, your site really has to load within the first 2 seconds. We have some delay with our lag times here. All right, second tip, answer the question. Now, there's been a lot of chatter in the industry around click-through rates, since Google removed the right rail ads in February. But it's possible for organic content to surface in the form of what we call rich answers. Now, is it therefore possible for rich answers to take away clicks from ads? Well, that depends on whether or not a concise answer can be supplied in the SERP. So rich answers are everywhere. You should kind of start to see these sprinkled throughout the SERP right now. And if you structure your page, the content on your page specifically, to answer user queries, your page is more likely to surface as one of these types of rich answers. So in case you're not familiar with what these elements look like, we've highlighted a few of these for you. There's the featured snippet, the local pack, which is for queries like where's the nearest ice cream shop, people also asked box, and the knowledge graph. Now, at this time, you can't mark up your page for rich answers because the idea is that they are chosen automatically by Google. But again, test this out on your existing content. Provide the answer towards the top of your page instead of burying it in loads of content where you might belabor the topic. Web pages with the most relevant content for search queries occupy the top positions. Aim for that answer box. So in some cases, rich answers can even appear at the top of the page above the organic listings. Isn't that crazy? Here's an example of where we took the query, how to schedule Instagram posts, as the answer is now provided by Hootsuite. Look at that. And it's in top billing above organic listings as a featured snippet. So aim for that answer box and you just might nail it. And that brings us to our next tip. All right, tip number 3, write for the right type of query. It's more likely that paid ads will usually lead users directly to a landing page where they can convert or make a transaction, whereas organic listings provide responses to user queries. But in this way, your content should match the intent behind those two very different types of queries. Informational versus transactional. Now, to illustrate intent, we chose some content from a concept that many of you are very familiar with, I'm fairly sure. Online dating. Notice the difference between these two pages. This is really interesting. The informational query has more content overall and no CTAs, no calls to action, right? Whereas the transactional example, we actually took this from a paid ad, and this was the landing page that we got, has much less content and actively provides CTAs. It has 2 types of conversions on there, 2 calls to action. So very different types of pages there. The key here is structure. Making sure that your existing content speaks to the query intent. Remember, people are busy, so pages that are well structured, that can quickly communicate relevant information and also indicate that there's supplemental content that might be helpful are useful. And not many people have time to sit and sift and read through a page that looks like a textbook. So you need to be careful there. Transactional keywords are more action-based. The user wants to usually accomplish something, get a task done. So you'd have queries like backpacks for safari in Africa or singles in San Jose. Going back to our ranking factors study, we saw this data where the organization of content was a factor that contributed to better rankings. So use lists to clarify a process or easily convey relevant supplemental information on your pages. So the pull quote here is, the content on higher ranking pages is better structured, contains more interactive elements, and is thus more comprehensible and interpretable for both users and the bot. Our 4th and final tip, focus on page quality. So here I'll explain how the use of proof and relevant terms with your content sends quality signals to Google about your content. in addition to referencing other indicators for determining a high page quality. All right, again with our online dating example. So here's an example of where proof terms come into play. This seems fairly intuitive, but again, going back to this example, from our ranking factors study, the use of proof terms and relevant terms is pretty important on a page. Now, proof terms are terms which are words or phrases that might be incorporated onto the page, and they really speak to the main part of the topic. Relevant terms, on the other hand, are those which suggest to Google that your page is just comprehensively covering the topic. They're synonyms or additional types of terms. As you can see here, OkCupid is a type of site. Statistics you might talk about as well. So this means that these are certain supporting terms that, when used on your page, indicate that the topic in general is being covered holistically, and that's essentially what we're looking for. All right, one other area that is quite interesting and maybe not a lot of people know about is the Search Quality Rater Guidelines. So this is as close as we'll get to an official statement on what is quality content from Google. This comes from the Quality Rater Guidelines published by Google. This is important because this document has been compiled and released to the public by Google itself. Search quality raters are third-party people. They're actually humans that Google hires through a third-party agency to rate search results. The raters look at queries on a scale against needs met and page quality, which is how good is the page. So they're otherwise very secretive when it comes to the inner workings of the search algorithm itself, but this is still a great way for us to look and prioritize the aspects of our content. The guidelines were actually updated in March of this year. Now, specifically, what's important to know here is they've placed a higher emphasis on 3 important concepts for page quality. These are expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So this means that your on-page content should exhibit these factors because these are indicative of quality from a reputable online source. So you want to show that you have a level of expertise through knowledge, breadth and depth of your content, and be an authoritative domain that's been around in existence for a while, that has a good reputation. And trust signals are also really important as well. Would you trust a page that has a ton of pop-up ads or that has, improper grammar or spelling? Probably not. So those are things you really need to watch out for, those top 3 things. All right, so in closing, those are my top 4 tips. Get the basics right, answer the question, write for the query, and focus on page quality. Remember, don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for things to be perfect before you start taking action. Just test, test, test. Google is always experimenting, so you should too. Make adjustments to your content, monitor your performance indicators, and adjust accordingly. You can reach out to me anytime on Twitter. I would love it if you would follow me. You can direct message me or just hit me up on the Twitter in general. I would love to help you guys solve questions and challenges that you have right now. So with that said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brett.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly. Great Twitter handle, by the way. Let me just say that.
Thank you. I don't know if I could ever
A lot
get
more creative than mine. So to get started from my angle, what was kind of left out of the intros, guys, I'm a direct marketer, so I'm going to go ahead right here and make 3 assumptions, right? For a great portion of you that are listening today, 1, you have content to promote. 2, you want more customers. And 3, you need a cost-effective way to move the needle. I'm here today to kind of coach you through this and hopefully show you a path that you can follow that's, can be effective for you. So let's get into my first point. So I want to bring up the idea of brand fitness. So if you think of SEO and organic social as, kind of like your diet. So if you're eating salads every day and you're eating healthy, you're eating clean, you can live a long life and you can live a long, healthy life, and it's something that you absolutely should do. It's almost required of you to live a long life. But if you really want to, take your physique, so to speak, to the next level, your brand to the next level, and get those next level results faster and quicker, you're going to want to incorporate some paid advertising, which is more like the heavy lifting, which is your exercise. You know, you want to have that ripped brand physique, so to speak. So why pay? And the answer is pretty simple. Sorry, you already are. Let's think about it. You're spending all this time producing this content. You're either doing it yourself or you're paying someone else to do it. And to be honest, are you really getting a full return on investment if you're spending all this time and money on your content if your organic reach via social media isn't really, you know, it's very limiting? As you can see on the graph on the left, like it's not getting any better, guys. So as opposed to asking the question, why pay, I ask the question, why not pay? Why not pay a little bit more and completely, you know, expand your reach and expand your audience growth? So when I bring up these types of things, people are always apprehensive about costs. So I like to go through a couple scenarios in relation to costs on two different scales. One a very small scale and one a very large scale. And you can see, you know, what the costs in relation to those two different strategies are. This first example is for Miss Louise's School of Dance. This is my sister-in-law's small business. We ran it for 2 days and spent $4 on it. And we reached 450 people, and we drove 40 clicks and 3 signups. Now, if you want to talk about those 3 signups, one class of Zumba is $10. So we already made a direct return on investment. And this is a very small business, guys. Just keep that in mind. Sorry, it froze up on me here. Yeah, we get some issues with the. There we go. All right, so let's look at a large scale example. This is for WordStream, completely different business. 1 month, we spent $1,000, right? We reached 100,000 people, and we drove over 200 downloads. That's 200 conversions to our database, guys. This is, you know, these are two completely different businesses, two completely different industries. You have B2C on the left, small business, very locally charged, and then you have on the right a very large business, B2B, and, you know, two completely different goals, yet we were able to scale for each, and we were able to make the cost effective for each. So today, what I'm going to go through is what I consider my 4 steps to have an effective strategy on Facebook and Twitter, you know, to turn content into customers. So let's start with number 1, choosing your content. So you have a couple of options here when I go into choosing content. So you have that really popular post on the left there, that cat wearing the glasses. That is your post that's getting tons of social shares, getting tons of traffic. People love it. People are engaging with it, and people are sharing it. And then you have that piece of content on the right? So that's your low funnel content. That's the stuff that's, you know, very product or service aligned. It's the stuff that your customers would enjoy, right? So the question is, which one do you choose? And I'm going to go on a limb and say both, right off the top of my head, because I'll go into the reasons why. But first, I'll show you why you should repurpose that top content. So, for example, we repurposed this 15 landing page ideas to inspire your next campaign. You can see on the left, it had tons of social shares, and we just gave it because we knew that there was enough value behind those shares and all that traffic and that engagement to this post. There was enough value behind it that people would be willing to submit some information in order to read it. That's how confident we were in the post's quality. Now, if you compare that to a piece of bundled content, these two things ran at the same time. So we go back to that slide where I had the cat and I had the guy with the money. Like, the cat is the one on the left, the guy with the money is on the right. We took a bunch of our low funnel content that's very accessible to people that would be a good fit for our business. And what we did was we bundled it into the digital marketers roadmap. Now, these ran at the same time, right? And you can see in large scale, the one on the left, it had tons of conversions, it had tons of downloads, but the percentage of those downloads that actually were super qualified for our products was a lot lower than the one on the right. And the reason being is this bundled piece of content, what we did was we took a bunch of that low funnel stuff That's stuff that's really, it hits home with people that would be a good fit for our products and services. And we bundled it in a way where we took all this content and we put it in a package that's very accessible. The digital marketer's roadmap. Like anyone who sees it, it catches their eye, they understand what it is very simply. It's nothing very technical about it. They just understand the message that it's going to take them and show them the way to go. So on to step 2. This is my I think this is one of the most underrated things in digital marketing today is the visual strategy. It's, you can go online and look for advice, and a lot of it has to do with all these gimmicks or like pushing and pulling levers, and people forget about the actual visual experience that your potential customers are going to go through when they're clicking on your ads. So I have a few components that I like to talk about that they work together to produce results for you. So one of those being the value proposition. So when I take a piece of content and I want to promote it on social media, I gotta understand the fact that you're going to Facebook and you're going to Twitter. There's a lot of noise out there, right? There's people posting all kinds of stuff that's probably way more interesting than a piece of content, but you've got to understand the value behind the content and why you wrote it. So, I mean, you go through all this time and effort to produce this, piece of content, and you have the headline. The headline is going to reel people in. So use that to your advantage. What I did here with how to compete in AdWords, I used color and I used the headline both to convey the value proposition. People want to compete in AdWords, and they want to, a lot of people have that feeling like, I can't compete in AdWords because I'm not the big guy. I'm not the king, so to speak. And then you have the pawn defeating the king, and all the colors tie everything back together. You see this image, and it resonates with you within a few seconds, and it clicks. And people are willing to click through. Now, on the flip side, when you go through the landing page experience, you want this to be consistent with your value proposition, right? So if I had a crying baby on this landing page, you'd get freaked out. You wouldn't know what the hell was going on because it has nothing to do with the image that they clicked on. So what you want to do is you want to create this seamless experience, right? And once again, I go back to the color orange. I chose that as the action color, the value color, and it's going to be the call to action as well. My second point here is imagery. So this is one of those things that people get really tied up on because they can have their targeting all set and they could be experts in that realm, but they don't know what kind of image they should use for their content. And my piece of advice is to treat your content, not like a piece of content, but like a package, like something that you're trying to almost sell people, right? Because they're going to have to submit information if you want to generate leads that way. And my number one thing when it comes to imagery, all right, so like it's difficult to just build these things out of scratch. So I'm going to ensure that after this webinar, like I send all my free tools and all my tips for finding images or putting this stuff together, because I understand that's a very that part of the process causes a lot of stress for people. But what I want you guys to keep in mind when you're creating these ads is the emotional reaction that the people that are seeing them are going to invoke, right? So when we look at the ones on the left, they're very charming, they're funny, and they're cute. Like people love kids. You can call it a gimmick, but it's going to catch your attention. You're going to read the headline, and then once you read the headline, that might actually draw you in, and you might be interested in that piece of content. But the kids, they break the ice for you. They're, whether or not, you don't have to have this like gut-wrenching scene, to use for an ad to draw an emotional reaction. You can use it. It's be very simple. Like look at the ones on the right. All they do is they cause intrigue. They invoke you to inspect the image and just be really immersed in that for that small period of time. You only have a few seconds to get people's attention. Which brings me on to consistency. So you don't really want to be all over the place. You want to have that brand consistency. You want to you obviously don't want to create the same ad over and over again so that people are desensitized to it. But then again, at the same time, you don't want them to be so completely different that people don't even recognize that it's you every time. You want that, if people are gonna see you multiple times, whether it's on cross-platform, Facebook, Twitter, you want to have an identity, and through that, I think with WordStream, we were able to establish that with our color scheme. And a lot of times, we incorporate waves and certain, logo aspects into each ad, and I think that helps a lot. So be consistent. So step 3. So if we think back to that first slide where I was talking about, what are you guys going to get out of this presentation? You want to turn your content into customers. And the quickest way that you're going to turn any piece of content into a customer is to target people that are familiar with you. Remarketing, my philosophy on remarketing is, why should you, search the universe for life when it's already in your backyard? So with that being said, you can't really do any form of effective remarketing on social media without having these universal tracking pixels established. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what a universal tracking pixel is, if you go into Facebook and you go into Twitter, you can generate this piece of JavaScript code that you place within the closing header of your website pages, right? So I suggest you put this on every page of your website, and you let it run. And what happens is when people visit your website in Facebook and Twitter, those audiences accumulate because Facebook and Twitter are tracking whether those people are coming, they're logged into their site and they're visiting yours, right? So what you can do with this is when you go back into your dashboards and you're setting up your campaigns, you can segment audiences. You can say, people that visited my page, I'm going to, tailor promotions to that. I'm gonna promote that low funnel content. That's why I said, promote both top and low funnel content, because you have people that just visited your homepage. Send them that popular piece of content. Bring them back in and let them, experience your brand. So when it comes to universal tracking pixels, if you don't have it set up, it's a lot like looking for Bigfoot without a camera. It really is. I can't advocate enough having this set up on your website if you're going to do social media marketing. So step 4. If you think about, so let's assume that you have your ads set up, you have your remarketing set up, you're showing to your remarketing audiences, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, what next? How do I take myself to that next level? How do I move the needle, so to speak? And that comes with growing your audiences. And there's a few different strategies to do this. One being lookalikes. 2 being custom audience lists. This is like email lists, database lists. You could have customer emails, upload them, and then manual targeting. So I tiered these in a kind of a specific way in order, I think, that you should actually focus on each, and I'll explain why. So with lookalikes and custom audiences, let's assume that you have that universal tracking pixel set up on your website, right? It's accumulating all these people, and what you can do is you can go into Facebook and you can go into Twitter and you can say, listen, I want to find people that that look like this. And what that means is Twitter and Facebook are going to take that aggregate number, that accumulated audience of people, and it's going to find similarities in demographics, interests, behaviors, all kinds of crazy stuff. And what it does is it really takes the guesswork away from you. So you don't have to go in there and you don't have to figure out who the hell I'm going to target. And it's actually very, it's one of those things where a lot of people will think, oh, well, it sounds better in theory, but no, it actually works. In my experience, lookalikes have been extremely effective. And this also works with custom audiences. Say you have a database full of emails or of people that have downloaded your content already, or you have a list of customer emails. You can upload those and create lookalikes as well. What you can also do with this is use these custom lists and use that universal tracking pixel to create exclusionary audiences. As this freezes on me. One second. All right. Oh, there's a monkey. All right. Yeah, so what you can do is you can exclude the current customers that you already have, and you can focus on those lookalikes. This is one of those things that is overlooked a lot of times. People are always like, all right, how do I get the next people? When in reality, you can really save money by just making sure that you're not showing up to certain people. Which brings me to my final targeting option, which is manual targeting. And this is literally having the world at your fingertips, which is really overwhelming. So what I do is, I could do a whole seminar on manual audience targeting with interests, behaviors, and all that stuff. But my core piece of advice, if I had one piece of advice to tell you guys when it's going into building these manual audiences, is to take your value proposition and reverse engineer it into who will benefit, right? So you guys already wrote this content, you already produced this content, or you already packaged it up, right? So you gotta ask yourself, who did I write this for? Who is the audience that you had in mind when you were writing it? And then write that down and go into Facebook and go into Twitter and decide, this is who I want to target specifically, and then test it out. What happens a lot of times is you can go into Facebook and go into Twitter and you're like, all right, I have to build my audience now, and it's very overwhelming, and you can go in there and you can start, all right, well, I know my customers would like this, and then it shoots like 20 different, examples of suggestions that you should do, and it can be very overwhelming. So my suggestion, write it down, figure out, make it clear in your mind who you want to target, and then, just test it out. Which leads me to my conclusion, which strategy is evolutionary. Listen, I started doing this stuff a couple of years ago, and it's not any way near what it is today. We've been able to grow it significantly. So, being said, my suggestion is, don't get so hung up on where you should be, and just focus on where you're at with your strategy and test things out. Take risks, and then when you got to realize that today's strategy is you're going to take that, you're going to analyze that, and then you're going to apply that to your next strategy tomorrow. Paid advertising is a learning experience. Always test, and that's pretty much all I got, guys. Thank you so much.
That was awesome, Brett. Holly, thank you so much. That was an awesome webinar, and I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm sure that everyone out there did as well. So we're just going to launch a quick poll. We have a couple offers available for you guys today. So if you guys are interested in either a free 1-hour AdWords assessment or a free content performance report from Searchmetrics, please don't hesitate to sign up for those now. Just vote in the poll. You can also vote for both if you'd like to do both. We'd be more than happy to grant those to you. So we'll leave the poll open for a little while if you guys are thinking through what you want. And we did get a couple questions as we went through the webinar. So I'm going to open it to Q&A. If you guys have more questions for Holly or for Brett, please don't hesitate to submit those through the questions box in GoToMeeting. And guys, we'll get started. So Holly, first question first. Can you elaborate on the difference between proof and relevant terms?
Sure. So, and Erin, you can hear me, correct?
Yep, yeah, perfectly.
Cool. Great, just checking in. Right, so what you want to be looking at is, and like I said, these are intuitive, but what's great about like a tool like Searchmetrics is that we can actually use data to give you more information about what actually should be included in the proof terms based on data that other competitors are using as well, talking about that topic. But your proof terms are really just anything that's really going to speak to the main topic of what you're talking about, and relevant terms are supplemental to that. And kind of going back to the whole structure of the page, like I said, try not to get too carried away with writing 2,000 to 3,000 words for a page. Supplemental content is great, but if it increases the length of your content and just takes away from the fact that you can simply answer the question and provide a really succinct, great answer, do that. Don't write just to have content. But those two types of terms are what you want to be making sure that you cover and reference in your content so that it's considered to be holistic for a topic.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
And then this one is for Brett. Do pixels work on LinkedIn?
That is a phenomenal question. So with LinkedIn, the issue with LinkedIn is, they have taken really kind of a back seat in terms of, keeping up with the other. They've kind of really wanted to do things their way. I'm not 100% sure on pixel implementation in terms of LinkedIn. I'm sure they have one for conversion tracking. We're actually currently embarking on a new LinkedIn adventure coming up where we're actually going to do some testing with them. So, I mean, I can update you on that. But in terms of if you really want intuitive, universal, intelligent tracking pixels, you're really only going to get those from Facebook and Twitter. They're far more advanced in the digital advertising, sector.
Yeah, cool. And then this question is for both of you. What are your favorite tools that you've used or tools that you recommend the audience using to create new content?
Brett, do you want to go first, or should I?
Sure. I mean, for creating, I'm kind of more on the promotional side. So I actually, like I said in my my presentation, I think we'll send along some of my favorite free tools in terms of once you have that content, what you can do to build, really good images and ads for it. There's tons of free tools out there. You don't have to have Photoshop. You don't have to have Illustrator. You don't have to be a graphic designer. You can use these very simple tools, and we'll send those along, as soon as we're done here.
And so, from my side, like content ideas, I'm a bit of a nerd. I love TED Talks. I really like listening to those, and sorting them by like what's popular or looking at a topic that's, completely different from, what I'm used to in online or digital marketing. I'm a big fan of like looking in other people's box, for ideas and enrichment. So looking at TED Talks for, kind of additional concepts and insights, but then also kind of going back to the SERP. It's really interesting to see what Google is, choosing to put in those people also asked box or the featured snippet, especially. So those kinds of things are actually really interesting. Take a look at how they think they should be answering the question, and those might give you some insight into additional ways to answer the question or additional expertise that you might be able to provide based on your brand, because people are asking the question in a different way, or they want a deeper, unique type of insight.
Yeah, and I'll actually chime in here too. A lot of what we do here at WordStream, we rely on a really simple tool called BuzzSumo. And literally, this tool just helps you identify pieces of content on any site that have gotten the most shares. And so what we'll do is we'll search for different websites, some of our competitors, or people in adjacent spaces, look at content that has gotten a ton of shares for them and think, okay, how can we dovetail off of this? Or if this is a topic that people are interested in, do we want to throw in our 2 cents on that particular topic? So that one has definitely come in handy. All right, another question. Brett, how do you pick the next best piece of content that you're going to promote on Facebook or Twitter?
Oh, good question. That's the best question you could have asked. So
I wish I could say I wrote it myself.
So with my process, what I do is I kind of take a look at what we have, whether it be a blog post or already an existing white paper. A lot of times I'll go through historical data and I'll see, what performs strongly. But, a lot of it comes down to my gut feeling. And, say what you want about it, but when I look at a post or I look at, a white paper, I think to myself, how can I market this in an accessible way? How can I take, that core value proposition and how can I turn it into something that, somebody might think is cool? Which is tough to do with a lot of things, but like that's, you have to go into that mindset of thinking, I'm taking this piece of content and I'm going to make it the coolest thing that I possibly can. Even though you've already kind of done that by writing it, that's my core piece of advice. I mean, you can go through data, you can, look at, like I went through all those social shares and, that very, those core metrics that you can look at and be like, all right, well, I need to promote that. But then on the other end, you can think to yourself, what is going to provide the most value for people, and how can I market it in a creative way? That's my process, at least.
Cool. Awesome. So now that we're wrapping up, I just have one last question for Holly. So someone said, not all content is informative or conversion focused. Mm-hmm. Do you have any tips for more mid-funnel leads?
I think that's the most simplistic way to look at it. You could argue that mid-funnel is still even informative because you're still searching for, a bit more information at that point. I know we probably can't ask the person to clarify the question, but I mean, that's kind of where you start to look at what we call the consumer decision journey, and that's where you break up the funnel, right? And you say, where do I want the most, informative information at the top, or do I want it at the bottom? And you can kind of play with it based on your brand and maybe how you've seen that process unfold for your consumers. But I would argue and say that it's informative kind of the whole way through until you really get to the point where you start to say, okay, I'm ready to make a transaction. I want to take an action and do something. But that informative content is really going to take many different forms. And like I said, that's kind of up to your brand for how you want to provide that information along the way to your customers. So if there's a challenge there, please reach out to me on Twitter. I'd love to talk to you more thoroughly about that. It sounds really interesting.
Cool. Wow. Thank you guys so much for answering. Oh, go ahead.
If you guys have any questions at all about any of this stuff, you can reach out to me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Mikhail05. Very simple. Just ask me anything.
We'll get you a cool one, Brett. We'll get you a cool Twitter handle.
Yeah, I'll work on that. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Well, we will definitely add everyone's Twitter handles to the email follow-up. So if you guys do have questions for our specific presenters, you can follow them. You can send them DMs, slam them with questions all you want in the 140-character limit of Twitter.
We love it. We love it.
Yeah, that's great. It's awesome to have people who are willing to help everyone out. So like I said, we will be following up with an email. We will provide a recording of this webinar to you so you can review it as many times as you like. And we hope to see all of you guys on our next webinar. So thanks so much for joining us. And thank you, Searchmetrics, for all of your help today.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate the time.
Awesome. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.